Clare's Court and Windsor Boys. When I see you're both straight and ready, I'll start you like this. Attention, go. Get ready, please. Attention, go.
The Fawley is junior men's quads, Clare's Court School on the left, and Windsor Boys School B crew trying to join the A crew in the final of this event.
Yeah, so if you've been with us for a few races now, you will see that familiar yellow and green blades of Windsor Boys School, really sharp, really neat, jumping out of the start there. But the white blades of Clare's Court keeping with them there. Look, we can see the faces of that crew from Clare's Court. Again, really nicely timed. You can see they're still quite relaxed here, chatting to each other even as they go off the start. I think they might have an early lead.
I wouldn't describe that as a chat. That was Max Pianta at 2 in the Clare's Court School, just giving a call. And you usually have the 2-seat or the bow seat in the crew who can best be heard by the rest of them, just giving a call on how to move from the frantic pace of the start into a more sustainable cruising pace in the beginning. But look at the faces of these young men from Windsor Boys School in the B crew. Really calm. We talked before about their A crew and how it looks like there's no work in the shoulders, really loose shoulders and arms, and the work's all in the core and in the legs.
Yeah, it's a very similar style here, isn't it? You can see they have used that to their advantage there and look to have just started putting some distance in to that crew from Clare's Court. Clare's Court School, coached by Alex Richardson, have had 2 very close races so far this regatta, but an impressive performance from the school. Both them and their junior women's squad also racing today, so it's the first time the school have had 2 crews through to Saturday at Henley Regatta.
Yeah, well spotted there, and I think it's great to see such strong competition as we look at the sculls of the Clare's Court School crew. Look at the parallel oar handles. Quick look round there from Max Pianta. He's clearly the tactician, calling out again for a push. He's letting the crew know where the other crew are. That look over the shoulder signifies that they've got a bit of a gap to close already in this course. And we're looking at the face there of stroke Harry Ruinet, 17 years old. Behind him, Matthew Freezer, also 17. Max, the older, in the crew at 2. We've seen him giving the calls, and at bow, Jonathan Nagel with responsibility for keeping the crew straight.
Crews coming together there, talking about crews, you know, having to keep those crews straight. I think this is really, you can't possibly understand how difficult it is to keep your crew going in a straight line when you are having to work as hard as this. It's hard enough, you've seen in some of the coxed boats where that's one of their main jobs. So these young athletes, I think, not only the challenge, the technical challenge with the wind and with the stream, but also, can you think of any other events where there's this level of scrutiny on young amateur athletes? Look at these pictures we're seeing now.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really watched, and you can see, well, the calls there are coming from the 3-seat. Dylan James at 3, 18.5 years old, sitting in front of Jack Cadwallader and Charlie Ingham, and in front of him it's Matthew Sadler at stroke. Been impressed by the calmness on the faces of these, but you can see Dylan calling for something major. Jack behind him just looks across, checks on where the opponents are. It's getting a little bit bouncy in the middle of the course, and this is the dangerous section. We've already seen a couple of races in the last 30 minutes where the leading crew has been overtaken in this sort of deader zone in the middle. You've had the excitement of the start and the expense of the start. You've still got the opportunity to push to the finish, but right now, a lapse in concentration in a moment is costly.
Absolutely so, and I think the racecourse at that point also moves away from the bank, so it also gets a little bit quieter. You feel a bit more removed from everything on the bank, and it is just more you and them going through this middle part. And look at that water behind the Clare's Court School. These aren't easy conditions to scull in for anyone, let alone young athletes here today.
Yeah, well spotted. I think the wind really is starting to pick up again this afternoon. The crews are coming together. I can see Sir Matthew Pinsent on the umpire's launch keeping a very close eye. What you're not allowed to do is stray from your lane, and if you do that and then you impede the crew behind, that can be seen as a foul, and the crew could be disqualified. They won't be disqualified without being warned first, but they are coming together. Another glance over the shoulder of Max Pianta, calling the tactics in the Clare School crew, and Windsor boys keep their composure, keeping strong and keeping in front as they pass the 3/4 mile signal. You can see that there's clear water, but as I thought, Matthew Pinsent's been watching like a hawk, and now he's decided it's time to warn. You can tell from this picture, can't you, Zoe, that just as the oars started to stray to overlap with the other crew, he's worn them away.
Absolutely, and it's costly to have to steer on a course like this. You know, you want to go from A to B in 2,112 meters. You don't want to add a single extra foot to that by having to steer back and forth. And they look like now they're struggling with Claire's Court coming over as well. This is getting into a little bit of a dangerous territory here.
Yeah, you know, he had to hold that arm out long and strong for quite a long time. We know he can do that from carrying the Olympic flag around the opening ceremony with his arm horizontal so famously, trying to compete with his predecessor, Sir Steve Redgrave, doing that. But he had to hold that arm out for a long time to warn Windsor Boys School away. But now I think he's pretty happy with this, and you can see during that period, despite the need to steer, they have opened up a further gap. They've gone from the 3/4 mile sign you can see there, maybe half a length of clear water, to more like a length now.
Yeah, I mean, that Claire's Court School are still pursuing them hotly. They are keeping pressure on this crew from Windsor B, but you can again see that yellow and green of the blades. But also look at the red hats are useful too. You can see the line of the hats, all of those four heads just moving in synchronicity as they come down now with around a length lead on Claire's Court.
Well, yesterday Claire's Court School were racing Leander. They were behind them at the barrier, the first marker, behind them at the halfway mark, but they managed to row through. The question is, can they repeat that experience they did yesterday, Friday, with Leander? It took them down in the second half of the course. I think they may have let Windsor Boys School B crew get away a little bit too far to do that. That's the question now. But look, they're both struggling a bit with steering. I think Windsor Boys again being warned for the third time by umpire Matthew Pinsent.
Yeah, and it looks now like both crews just keeping that rate of striking pretty high. They're trying to keep it moving. Will we see a little bit of a burst now coming into the finish? There you go, the stroke rate on that Windsor Boys School, 32 strokes a minute. They are keeping that moving along really nicely now as they come into the last minute of racing.
So that's a relatively calm stroke rate, but we are facing quite challenging conditions here with a lot of drag on the boat from the wind and the swirl and so on, and they're trying to row in a confident way. For my money, Claire's Court are attacking, and they have started to close some of that gap, and you can see probably a higher stroke rate on the Claire's Court School crew as they attack through the enclosures. But have they left it too late? There's only about 10 to 12 strokes remaining for Windsor Boys B crew. Are they going to book their place in a historic Windsor and Windsor final tomorrow?
And they've got to be careful now with the steering. Claire's Court coming right across, but they have left it too late. And it looks like it is going to be that Windsor-Windsor race tomorrow. So Windsor will be taking that trophy home one way or another tomorrow for the third time in 10 years.
Well, you can tell that is the result they wanted. The B crew desperate to compete in the final against their A crew. A true marker of the quality of the Windsor Boys School programme. Great young athletes, mature athletes too. Matthew Pinsent, well, he's used that flag a couple of times through this race, but he holds it aloft to say it's a clean race, nobody was impeded, fair race, and, well, there's the stroke of Windsor Boys School B, Matthew Sadler, just congratulating and thanking his opponents, the Claire's Court School.
And I think, given the season that they've had, this is a well-deserved final for those two crews.